What's up? How you doing? It's Jared. I just wanted to show you guys this is an example of bad milling, right? And what I'm talking about is when they actually, this is a bar stock of steel, and they put it in a machine, actually mill it down to give it this shape, right? CNC machine. And this here, you can see that it was honestly probably done. It was done on a machine, but more by hand, because you can see here that it just doesn't line up. It's not a proper shape. The corners there are at completely different angles. The handle itself matches up with the tang pin at different levels. You can see this side's lower down than this side actually meeting the tang pin. There's more of a tang cup that's necessary on this side opposed to this side. You can see that it's just not properly done. Ignore the screws. That is a replacement screw. I did that one as well. And then flip to the other side, you can see it's the same thing. It just doesn't match up at all. I mean, they're the same shape relatively, but it just, it doesn't look good. You can notice that there's definitely a difference there, as well as this rib on the side here. You can see that's actually where the machine cut it. There's a big saw blade coming in and cutting this steel out, and it's still got all of the milling marks left all the way around the edges. But what's interesting, as you can see this side, how narrow they are, how close together they are, and this side, how far apart, how many less actual lines there are like per inch. And what that is it was moving faster. The machine was either moving faster or the person was feeding it into the machine too quickly, whatever. And it gave a different aesthetic as well on that. And then the flat sections, right? Look at the flat sections of these knives. They're actually different widths, this side especially. You can see that this flat section here is 2/3 as wide as this flat section here. And so what the reason for that is the ends here. You can see that this side comes down, it's fat, big and fat, big and fat. But if I flip it over to the other side, this side is skinny. You see that? It comes down to almost an edge, while this side remains that fat, large section. And so it's only this side here of this scale that is milled off like that. It comes all the way down right next to the edge. And it's the same thing with this side here. You can see that this side actually started out wide, and then as they milled it down, they tapered down to, again, almost having that edge on the end, but they didn't on this. I mean, this is a really cheap knife. This isn't a high quality knife at all in any respect, but it's just interesting to look at all of these problems and flaws with the knife. But functionally it works. Functionally there's nothing wrong with this thing. I've had this thing for a couple years. I've replaced a lot of different parts. I mean, I've beat it up. These aren't actually the original handles to the blade, so it's, I can't hate on it too much, but it's definitely interesting to look at and find all those little flaws. And I'll bring up something else. This is a little bit higher end knife, right? This is a Spyderco Endura Damascus, right? Titanium handles. And if you look at the butt end of this knife, you can see that, transition there? It's not rounded. There's a flat section. And so there's even a mistake on the milling of this knife here. And this is a much higher end knife. And this is a $160, $175, $180 knife. I'm not quite sure how much they're actually going for now, but right underneath $200 knife, and it still isn't finished perfectly well. And I can do this. I can keep going, even a little bit higher end. This is a ZT0452CF, and all of the edges look good, mostly until you get it in just the right light. Let's see if I can actually get this to come across here. But on this end here, it's not going to come across, but if I can get it into the right light, I can see underneath the actual, a little bit there, you can see underneath the stone washing, that same type of mill cut that is in this side here, those little lines from the milling, is actually on the edge and the end, or the core chamfers of this knife. Very minorly. You can see that edge isn't perfectly finished there. And another step up, let's bring it up even a little bit further. There are people out there that would just die on the fact that I'm bringing up a Chris Reeve Sebenza to talk about milling issues. There's no way they get, there's no way there's something wrong with a Chris Reeve Sebenza as far as finish goes, all that. But if you look at the top of this, right, that line there coming up does not meet up perfectly with that top section. You can see that? It's off. It's off by, it's a fraction of a millimeter, but it's off. And then as well, these top two sections here don't line up. You can see how this side is just a fraction a little bit further down. You can definitely see that these lines here don't match up as well. It doesn't doesn't match up to the opposing scale on the other side. And so, I mean, this is a Chris Reeves Sapenza, the knife that's looked at as the perfect knife, the ooh and the awe of perfection in the knife industry, and it still isn't perfect. So it's across the board, you know, and all these are genuine. They were bought from a brick and mortar registered dealer location. I don't purchase a lot of knives online. All of these were bought from a registered dealer from the factory. So it just goes to show you, honestly, it's kind of pathetic. But that's one of the reasons that it's not one of the reasons that I like knives so much, but it is one of the things that I do with knives. When I purchase a new knife, I go over it with a fine-tooth comb to find all those little imperfections, to find all those little defects in the design, and it's not honestly a negative for me. It's not something that I hate on or that I look down on. If it's blaringly obvious, yeah, obviously I'm not going to like that. If there's a problem with it, I'm not going to be happy with that. But there's those little minor imperfections just kind of give it a little bit of character, because they're all going to be different, especially something like this Spyderco. The way that end is milled out there, none of these two are going to be the same. So my knife is relatively unique. I can definitely see people not holding that thought process to be true nearly as much, but I definitely appreciate it. I love finding all those little flaws. It's the flaws in all of us that make us great. Y'all have a good one.